Whenever you get stuck on something in life, usually it's best to go about it from a different angle. If one strategy isn't working out for you, perhaps you'll find better results via a different method. Today's level is called Ascent, which plays out during the final portion of the mission, the portion that many teams end up struggling with. So instead of ascending our way to victory, how about we try descending? Hello everyone, Professor Scaly here, and welcome to the alternate R6CX level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and this time around, I recommend you bring with you a bio tracker, a mine deployer, an auto sentry, and a burst sentry. Reason for the bio tracker is the same as always. Being able to tag enemies with it is always beneficial. There is a zone in this level that will be covered in pitch black darkness, as well as a fair amount of scouts in some of the other zones. So being able to tag those enemies in advance, or if we wake up the scouts and being able to quickly figure out what direction the waves are coming from, can help save us from a sticky situation. As for the mine deployer, I like this because there are a few alarm doors in this level where mines can help out quite a bit. They can also be useful towards the ending of the level as long as you're quick and you can get to the doors before enemies break them down. And also, since there are a fair amount of scouts in this level, if we do happen to wake up a few of them, it's always nice to be able to run to a nearby door, shut it, mine it, and let the mine do most of the work for us. As for the auto sentry and the burst sentry, these are here to also assist us during the alarms in this level, but they show their true value towards the ending of it when we're in the desert dimension and we have to go for those 3 uplinks. Out here, while there are a few doors we could utilize, a lot of it is going to come down to the sentries and just simply us shooting at those enemies. And since we're going to have enemies coming at us from multiple different directions and some fairly close quarter combat areas, having an auto sentry to stagger the enemies and keep them back with a high rate of fire helps out tremendously. And then having a burst sentry which can just actually kill those enemies and put in some solid damage from close to mid-range combat will make it so that we have a much easier time dealing with those hordes of enemies and we don't have to split our focus up quite as much. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to find a specific terminal and create an uplink with it, and that terminal will always be located inside of zone 81. Meanwhile, you and your teammates will be starting off inside zone 75. In here, there will be some resources to collect, a few enemies to deal with, but most of the zone is covered in infectious fog. Thankfully though, this zone is quite generous and will provide you with a good amount of fog repellers that you can use to safely make your way through and either just melee kill the enemies, or if you want to, go on ahead and just simply pull the rooms, as it's just going to be regular strikers and shooters for the most part, so you don't have to worry about scouts or anything else more dangerous waking up. But as you make your way through the zone, eventually you get to the far northern end where you'll find a security door to zone 76. This door is going to be a full team scan. And zone 76 itself, not really anything too special about it, just more enemies to deal with, resources to collect, and at the back end of the zone, you'll find the security door to zone 77. This door though is going to have a class 5 mixed alarm tied to it, and as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for these enemies and one door they can take to get into your room. So go on ahead, shut that door, mine it, and then have your sentries inside the room facing towards that door. But once you got everything set up, activate the alarm, take care of the scans, and once everything is finished, you can then just deal with the last few enemies, pack up your sentries, and go into zone 77 itself. Now, zone 77, you want to be very careful in here, as this entire zone is just one big room, or at least I believe it is. I don't think there's actually a room divider in here. And throughout the zone, there's going to be 1 charger scout, 4 normal scouts, a fair amount of giants, as well as more infectious fog. Best way to deal with this is just take it nice and slow, deal with the scouts with melee as best as you can. If things go wrong and the scouts wake up, my recommendation is quickly get both of your sentries facing towards the staircase that you had to go down to get into this room, as that's a nice little funnel point, and then you and your teammates can focus on killing the remaining scouts as well as the giants who are in the room, and then those sentries will sort of delay the scout wave a little bit, give you more time to do that, and then you can shift your focus over to the scout wave. Once you've dealt with all the enemies inside the zone though, you can go to the back end of it where you'll find the security door to zone 78. This door is going to have a class 3 stealth scan tied to it, and those scans are going to go all throughout the room, and most of the time they will be down in the infectious fog. So use those fog repellers to safely complete the scans, maybe even get a few more fog repellers from in here, and once you finish all the scans, you can go back to the door, open it up, and head inside. As for Zone 78, not really a whole lot of special stuff in here, just more enemies to deal with, usually a fair amount of giants, so be cautious of them I suppose. But at the far southern end of it, you will find a security door to Zone 79. This door is going to have a Class 5 alarm tied to it though, and as you can see with this map overlay, there are 2 possible spawn locations for these enemies, and 5 different doors you can utilize, which I recommend you shut and mine every single one of them, and then have your 2 sentries facing towards the direction enemies will be coming from around the room divider area. That way your sentries will shoot at them from a distance, but also be close enough to you that you can deal with some of the enemies who are right there. Once everything is set up though, just deal with this alarm like you typically would, and once every single one of the scans have been finished, deal with the remaining enemies, pack up your sentries, and then you can go back and open up the security door. But upon opening up the security door to Zone 79, a blackout is going to occur. And throughout this entire zone, there are going to be a fair amount of regular strikers and shooters, as well as a few sleeping hybrids here and there. Thankfully though, no scouts in the zone, so just make your way through, dealing with the enemies and grabbing resources. And at the back end of it, you will find the security door to Zone 80. This door is going to have a full team scan tied to it, and upon opening up this door, all the lights in the level will come back on. So the blackout is only going to affect Zone 79 itself. As for Zone 80 though, throughout here there are going to be 2 charger scouts as well as 4 normal scouts patrolling about and a fair amount of enemies. And since there's only 3 rooms in the zone, I believe, more often than not you'll have at least 2 scouts per room. Just go throughout it, deal with them best as you can. If you come across regular scouts, of course you could just try to melee them. Charger scout, you could go for coordinated melee takedowns with your teammates, or if there's just 1 charger scout in the room with a few normal scouts, deal with the normal scouts first and then just simply shoot the charger scouts with a gun that will one-shot from behind and you should be good. But as you make your way through the zone, once you dealt with all of the enemies, you'll be able to find a security door to Zone 81. This door is just going to have a checkpoint scan tied to it, and that's it. And inside Zone 81, more enemies for you to deal with, a little bit of infectious fog you have to make your way through, and at the far back in the 3rd and final room, you will be able to find the terminal you need to make that uplink with. So deal with every single one of the enemies in the zone, grab the resources, and once you're good to go, you can start setting up your defenses, as this uplink will have a total of 4 codes tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there's only 1 possible spawn location for these enemies, and 2 doors they have to go through to get to you and your teammates. And what I recommend you do is make sure both the doors are shut, mine both of them, and then if you happen to come across a C-foam grenade or 2, go on ahead and use that on the door that leads directly into your room. More often than not, all the enemies will pile up on that far outer door as it breaks open, so the mine will kill every single one of them and delaying the next wave. And then, as long as you're pretty quick on that uplink terminal, you should be able to finish it before the enemies even have a chance to break down the door into your room and start attacking you. So get everything good to go, and once you're ready, initiate the uplink, do the full team scan, then just have 1 person focus on it while the other 3 people just wait by that door. And if they are a little bit slow and enemies happen to make it into the room, just deal with them as you normally would. And once all 4 of the codes have been taken care of, enemies will stop spawning in. And after the enemies stop spawning in, shortly afterwards, you're going to get teleported out to the desert dimension. And as soon as you do, you want to start running all the way to the top as quickly as you possibly can. Because out here, there are going to be 3 more terminals you have to create uplinks with, each one of them having 4 codes tied to them. And while you're out there, waves of regular strikers and shooters, as well as flyers and even some armored flyers, are going to continuously spawn in. There's also a layer of normal fog, not infectious, but just purified fog, which will slowly rise up, although that isn't too much of an issue. So what I like to do is, again, as soon as I teleport out here, I start running for the top as quickly as I can. I will deal with any of the enemies who are immediately in my face, but if they are off to the sides, I'll kind of just ignore them. If I see boxes or lockers along the way, I will try to open them up, as there are a pretty fair amount of resources out here. And once you get all the way to the top, you'll be able to find the 3rd terminal. Now, some people like to deal with this final portion by doing the terminals in order as you go from bottom to top, but I find that the top 2 terminals are the more difficult ones. The one at the bottom is actually the easiest one to hold out with, so I like to get those done first while my team is still fairly healthy and has plenty of ammunition, and before things get a bit too crazy. Once you get up there, there are a few doors nearby, which if they haven't already been broken down by the waves of enemies spawning in, quickly place mines on them and then get your sentries set up. And once you're good to go, 1 person's going to get on that terminal, put the command in to initiate the uplink, you do the full team scan, and then 1 person will focus purely on the uplink while 3 people focus on protecting them. The amount of enemies that spawn in during the uplinks isn't all that much. It's actually not too difficult to deal with all of this. The bigger concern though would be those flyers, because they can keep a distance and focus on the person on the terminal. So whoever's on the terminal, keep an eye out. If you see yourself getting hit, let your teammates know, and teammates, do your best to keep them safe and prevent the flyers from killing them. Once you finish the first uplink at the top of the area though, grab your sentries and quickly go down a little bit to the second terminal, set up shop there, and get moving as fast as possible. This terminal can be pretty annoying to deal with as enemies can come at you from multiple different directions, and even though it looks like you have plenty of cover, the flyers actually have a pretty easy time of hitting you. And in most of my runs around this point is when the armored flyers will start spawning in, and if an armored flyer decides to go after the person on the terminal, that person might be hitting the floor pretty quickly. So set up best you can, make sure you're communicating, grab nearby resources and resupply, and get this second uplink done as quickly as you can. Once you have finished it, deal with any enemies who are right there in your face, grab your sentries, and quickly start running all the way down to the bottom, or at least most of the way down until you get to where that final terminal is. Once you get here, throw a few fog repellers as the fog will have covered this area a bit so you can more easily see. Fog isn't too dense though, so if you don't have any fog repellers, it's not the biggest deal in the world. Place down your sentries as all the enemies have to come at you from one direction, and then just get to work on the third and final uplink. At this point, your HP might be running a bit low and your resources might be a bit tight, but thankfully, most of the regular strikers and shooters have to spawn pretty far from above you, so it'll take a while to get down to you, and while there will be a good amount of flyers and armored flyers, it's actually fairly easy for them to get stuck with all the pipes and stuff in the area, so it's not too hard to deal with them. You just have to work on the third uplink terminal while your 3 defenders just make sure nothing gets too terribly close and that there isn't an armored flyer in the distance trying to be a sniper and take out the person on the terminal. And assuming you're able to survive and you can get all of the codes done for the third terminal, you just have to hold out for a little bit because shortly afterwards, you will be teleported back to the complex. Once you get back, you are basically home free. All you have to do now is backtrack a little bit until you get to the security door to Zone 82. This door is just going to have a full team scan tied to it. And inside Zone 82, no enemies whatsoever, no resources to collect. But when you make it into the final room, you're going to want to climb all the way to the top because up there, you'll be able to find Unit 27. And your objective at this point is to confirm the status of it. Once you go near it, your objective will update and the security door down below to Zone 83 will automatically open up. And inside Zone 83, again, no enemies, no resources, just simply your extraction scan, and it is a silent one, so hop on top of it, wait a little bit, and once the scan gets all the way to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R6CX. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R6CX was the final extension level for Rundown 6. And while it's lost most of its story elements, which made it stand out so much in the original R6, it's still a fairly decent level. Everything up to the desert dimension is more on the basic side of things and can feel quite similar to many other levels out there, but quickly ascending and descending to complete the 3 uplinks and escape back to the complex is a nice change of pace and a bit challenging. It really is a shame though that we lost one of Schaefer's famous lines in this version of the expedition. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that I was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this mission that you want to share, any questions for me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, remember that sometimes thinking outside of the box can make a challenging situation a bit easier to handle, both in video games and in real life, and hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.